All right, I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 13th, 2018 regular school board meeting to order. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Estheimer.
Present.
Mr. Freitas.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Koopser.
Here.
Ms. Mossop.
Present.
Dr. Pomponio.
Here.
Mr. Craig.
Here. And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The district's mission statement is learning for life. The vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Okay, takes us to the approval of the agenda. Do we have any modifications? Okay, none. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support. Okay, I have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. Takes us to citizens' comments. Do we have anybody to speak tonight? No? Okay. We don't have any presentations, so we are quickly to student government representatives. We have the drama club from Anderson, I believe.
Quick moving agenda.
She's got a Charlie Brown shirt on.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Glitz. I'm the president of the Southgate Anderson Drama Club. We're just here to talk to you today a little bit about what we do and how we encourage students to get out there and meet new people and make new friends, and kind of what we do throughout the year. So starting in the fall, we have auditions for our fall show, which this year happened to be Greek Mythology Olympiaganza. It was a straight show, no musical. This spring we had our spring musical, which is Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. Is it my shirt? Yeah. So the show dates for that are February 22nd, 23rd, 3rd and 4th? 2nd and 3rd, sorry. Last weekend of February, first weekend of March. So the drama club I like to think of as like a second home to us. It gives us a place to go after school where we can meet new people, make new friends. You can be a techie, which are the people that work backstage, does the lights and the sound and all of that stuff, or you can be an actor or an actress on stage. All of us happen to be actors in the show. I just wanted to let you guys know how much we love being on stage, having a great place to let out all of our emotions and express ourselves artistically. Thank you again for the new stage and the new lighting and sound and the curtains. It was so much appreciated. We all freaked out when we first saw it. We were so excited. So that's a little bit about the drama club. So thank you guys.
Hi, my name is Greg Krzyzanowski. I'm playing Charlie Brown in the spring show. Before I say anything, I would like to say thank you not only for the opportunity to speak this evening, but as Stephanie said, for the opportunity to have a new stage and to an extent, give our second home a touch-up. It really did mean the world to us, and us in the drama club, we appreciate the opportunity to go somewhere, to do something productive, to give people an opportunity to go out and see something that they might never see anywhere else. As it was stated, it's a second home. It's a second family. It's a new friend group every show, and it really is a great organization, and it's a great group of people. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Krzyzanowski. I just have a quick question. How many of you are in drama? All of you? 5? How many of you guys started out as squirrels?
Like shy?
No, garish.
Oh.
Okay, so this has been years and years that you guys, I can't believe you forgot the squirrel. I hope Mr. Reynolds doesn't see.
Yeah, I got it.
So that's since 6th, 7th grade, right? And you guys are in what grade now?
I'm a senior. I'm a junior.
So this has been the majority of your schooling, huh? And that's really exciting for me. I had squirrels too that branched off, but trying out for the talent show tomorrow night?
Absolutely.
We're going to have stand-up this year.
Should I make it? Yes.
Something to look forward to, anyone watching at home. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Colleen?
I just want to say, it's nice to see the enthusiasm for your program, and I'm very proud to see how articulate you guys are. So thank you and good luck.
So they're anxiously awaiting to hear when they're going to get sound and light training as it was scheduled for Friday.
Mr. Green will write you a check tonight.
So we're waiting to hear from Mr. Kakowski about when it's rescheduled, and I have not heard yet, but I will reach out again tomorrow, so. Since their production starts a week from.
Check.
A week from Thursday. Ooh. Coming soon.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, it takes us to committee reports. I don't know that we have any new committee meetings since the last meeting. If I'm wrong, jump in. Did we
Have a committee report.
do? Okay, sorry, Jason, go ahead.
Since the last regular scheduled board meeting, which was the day after our last regular scheduled board meeting, we had a finance committee meeting. In that, we expressed, we talked about old business as related to, still trying to get on our website what we're spending the millage money on. A graph on there that shows the decisions that have been made by the board and how it's been allocated. I owe a mock-up to Teresa for that specifically. Additionally, we went into a discussion as related to the early retirement packages and buyout packages that the committee members questioned, peppered Teresa off with, and we brought that to the broader board with the retreat, which will be discussed even further tonight. And then we also talked about how we are going to look for, not only how we look at a curriculum 5-year plan, but looking at a financial 5-year plan as we move forward. And we brought up the topic for discussion, which will be an ongoing topic within the Finance Committee, for us to start looking at those needs and risks within the district, specifically related to expenses. And that's pretty much my report.
Okay, thank you. Did I skip over anybody else who had a committee report? Okay. Okay, that takes us to J, reports. Ms. McLaughlin's not here. Are we skipping over finance, or does somebody have a finance report? It's just,
I have one statement
okay,
included in mine.
all right. So then we'll skip over finance and we'll go to curriculum.
And my curriculum report really involves the new course proposals, which is a work item, so I can, am I
Okay.
updated that time?
Reserved for that? Okay, very good. We'll quickly on to superintendent report.
So the transportation RFP has gone out, and the interviews are scheduled for the end of March for that. That's from Teresa. There was one bullying report filed in January, and that one bullying report was submitted from a Davidson parent for an incident that occurred during an athletic practice. Phone outages. They were out all night and all day till 4 p.m. At 4 p.m., the phone server was back online and functioning. The technology department is in the process of resetting all the phones to get them registered to the server. So that we should be all set for tomorrow. The proposed governor's budget that came out includes $120 to $240 per pupil increase using a 2x formula. This basically means that districts at the base get more money than those at the maximum. So that base foundation allowance would be $7,871. We currently receive $7,631. So that would be an increase for us of around $240 as an estimate. It also includes $50 per pupil for high school students enrolled in high-demand CTE courses, $25 per pupil for high school students enrolled in CTE courses, $25 for each high school student, shared time reduced to 5% of the total number of students enrolled in that district. Retirement increased to 26.12% from last year's rate of 25.56. They are reducing the cyber schools by to to 75% of foundation for funding, and there is no increase for at-risk funding, so that's 31A funding. So that's just some highlights for the governor's budget, which typically does not get finalized until June. So that's it for me.
Thank you very much. And again, we're to citizens' comments. So still nobody who wants to talk. All right. Takes us to the consent agenda. The way I have the consent agenda right now reads minutes of January 23rd, 2018 regular board meeting and January 30th, 2018 winter board retreat, HR update, and disbursements for January 2018.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve. Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And the first action item that we have is the employee severance plan. Is that being presented by you, Jill?
It is presented through me, through Teresa. So the Educators Preferred Corporation provided the district with a feasibility study for an employee severance plan to assist the district in reducing salary costs. We have spent several meetings with the board and finance committee discussing the results and benefits and concerns. Based on these discussions and the timeline for implementing this plan for the 2017-18 year, the administration is requesting that the board approve the ESP as presented. Attached is a board resolution, the timeline for implementing ESP upon your approval, and the most recent feasibility study. You have to read the entire resolution.
Anybody have any questions direct for Jill before we discuss? Questions for Jill? Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have to read the whole?
The entire thing. Yes, this is one of those long ones.
Okay. Whereas the Board of Education, in order to reduce costs and at the same time maintain the highest possible educational standards, and whereas the Board of Education deems it to be in the best interest of Southgate Community School District to offer an employee severance plan to its employees represented by the United Teachers of Southgate, MEA-NEA collective bargaining agreement. And whereas if the proposed ESP employee severance plan, which has been presented to the Board of Education, is implemented, it can substantially increase retirements or resignations in a manner which reduces salary costs for the district and also reduce the need for involuntary layoffs. Therefore, be it resolved that the proposed ESP employee severance plan is hereby adopted by the Southgate Community School District Board of Education on the condition that they include any revisions suggested by the board's legal counsel, and on the condition that where applicable, the collective bargaining representatives sign an appropriate memorandum of understanding. Further, that EPC, Educators Preferred Corporation, be recognized as the agent and consultant of record to implement the plan as described in the letter of agreement between EPC and the Southgate Community School District. The Board of Education shall reserve the right to evaluate the results of the plan. If less than 15, 12 of which must be general fund, not Act 18 funded eligible teachers, timely agree to accept the offered plan as determined at the end of the revocation period, the board may deem the plan null and void. The board reserves the right solely at its discretion to waive this requirement should a lesser number of eligible teachers take the offered plan. Be it further resolved that the superintendent and the superintendent's designees have the authority to sign any documents relating to the severance plan, including any documents relating to the group administration contract, terminal funding agreement, group annuity. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education shall make employer contributions into 403B accounts for participants in the ESP employee severance plan, meeting the eligibility requirements described in the plan provided. However, that any such provider must be on the approved list of providers that is in effect at that time of employee's resignation from employment or retirement, and the board shall continue to have authority to approve or disapprove any of the providers. Such contributions shall not cause any employee to exceed the contribution limits of Section 415C of the Internal Revenue Code as applicable to 403B plans. It's the intention of the Board of Education that this 403B plan will conform to federal and state statutory and regulatory requirements applicable to 403B plans, except that the program shall not be subject to the requirements of Title I of ERISA, because as a government employer, the Southgate Community School District is exempted from such requirements. The Board of Education reserves the right to offer or not offer similar plans in the future without obligation to those electing this plan. The Board of Education authorizes the superintendent and her designees to act on behalf of the Board of Education with respect to this plan and take any and all actions necessary or desirable to implement, maintain, and administer the plan. Thank you.
Say that again.
Okay. So I have a motion and a support. Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. President, I'd just like to make it clear for those watching, teachers watching especially, that it's clear that this is not something that we do or any board does on a continuous basis. I believe the last time Southgate offered an early severance plan was 2002. Therefore, whether it's taken or not, it's not something that's going to be revisited every year, for example, just to be clear to everybody.
Okay.
For clarification, who seconded that?
That was supported by
Koopser.
Mr. Koopser. Any other questions or statements? No? Okay. I'm going to say I kind of struggled with this just a little bit, you know, so I can back up what Mr. Green is saying. I don't think this is going to be offered again in the foreseeable future. So, I guess that's all I had for it. With that, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And it takes us to action item number 2, which is change in board compensation.
Would you like me to talk about this?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and get started.
So with the consideration of changing the board member compensation, Teresa did annualize the current board compensation on a per meeting basis on the compensation for March 21st, 2017 through December 31st of 2017. The average cost was about $2,111.82 with an annual cost of $25,341.82. I do have to tell you that at the board retreat, you did discuss going to a flat rate of $2,500. When I got back to the office, I did investigate the difference and found that from March 21st of 2017, you did originally approve a board stipend of $22.50 with some per meeting fees of $35. However, on May 9th of 2017, under Leslie's recommendation, you released the 10% cut that you had taken for several years. It brought your compensation back up to $2,500 for last year, and then it says the adjustment for changes over the 5-year period, including reorganization of duties and responsibilities, shall bring the total current stipend to $28.50 per year for each board member. That $28.50 is $19,950, which is a cost saving of just under $6,000 from Teresa's projected amount.
Thank you.
That's a cost savings without the committees that were totaled from last year, or from?
That's Teresa's estimate, because we didn't have the new fee plus the $35 per meeting, because it only happened since March. She sort of estimated what it could be for a year. That's just an estimated savings.
Okay, thanks.
other questions for Ms. Pastor? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say that this was, during the discussion, I'm pretty sure I'm the one that said 2,500 misunderstanding and miscalculating the amount. So both things were kind of discussed, was both the 2,500 and the current stipend. What we have in front of us is the stipend for 2,850. But we also did have the discussion for 2,500, so I think both of those could be discussed if anybody wanted to, but, so that said,
I can go ahead and, can
I do have 1.2.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I guess properly, we don't have a motion yet to discuss, so we should probably have a motion, and it probably makes sense to divide this action into two separate motions, one being what the consensus was at the retreat, which would essentially eliminate the compensation for additional meetings and committees, and then maybe a second motion, which would basically get us back to just a straight stipend, and then maybe another motion to discuss the amount.
Before we do that, Mr. President, I did have a question for Ms. Pastor.
Oh, sure.
When we were talking in the first paragraph, the monthly average cost was $2,111.82. And that says that makes an annual cost of $25,341. But if you take that stipend, wouldn't that be $14,777?
It's 2,850 times 7, right?
Right.
Is 19,500, right?
I'm just asking, I don't know where the number of 25,341, or is that an estimate because we had went to?
That's what Teresa annualized as an estimate.
That's just a.
It's like she took the year, our expenses last year and just.
When we were on the per meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Well, no, it looks like what she did was she took from March 21st through December 31st and came up with a monthly, and then pushed that out to the whole year.
I think that's when we started getting that extra.
Yeah, March is when we started getting
Okay.
the additional amount, so she just pushed it out what it would have been if we had done it for the whole year.
That's how I read it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess first would be, do we have any kind of a motion for taking the annual payment to a straight stipend? Mr. Kroopser?
I'd like to make a motion to approve an annual board stipend effective as of February 1st. And the stipend that would be paid once a month in the second pay period of each month, and it's subject to proration based on the services as a board member.
And what's the amount?
We'll have to address that
Okay.
in the second. Okay, I have a motion. Is there support?
I support.
Okay, I have a motion and support. Okay, any discussion on that?
I think from the board retreat, Teresa said it would just make it simpler for her and less cumbersome.
Yeah, I think
For
it
doing this.
simplifies the process much more.
Well, actually, the board pay should be the board's decision and not how it encumbers the process. It should just be based on, but that's okay.
So Teresa's not here, obviously, but Teresa was talking about for a budgetary purpose, it's much harder to not know what to annually budget rather than an annual stipend. I think that's what Teresa was referring to.
Right, so this takes us to a fixed amount.
Correct.
Per month, per person, that we can figure out for the whole year.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any questions? Okay, I have a motion and I have support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Okay, and then I think it would be appropriate to have a second motion for the amount.
I'll make a motion to set the board stipend of $28.50 based on the cost savings of $6,000 estimated by our financial manager.
Okay, I have a
Objection.
motion. Sorry.
It is already set at that.
Oh, okay, so we don't need to, yeah, you're right, as of May 9th or whatever. Yeah, you're right.
Is that what you said that's in the, I thought so, it was,
So we don't need to
So the board stipend was set
Your
on
motion
May
took care of
9th.
everything.
yeah.
Well, that's, if we would like to keep it at 28.50.
So the stipend amount was already set
On May 9th
On
of
May 9th.
2017.
for 2017.
Okay.
So we don't need a
Track that.
separate action for the amount then,
Only if we'd like to change it to
if we're
2,500.
changing it.
Point of order, I'd like to say something about the order of the compensation, because shouldn't we be talking about the committees first, because that's what it was based on, or?
No, that's, the additional amount's already been discussed. That part was gone.
Okay.
That was the last motion.
Okay,
So what we
well,
have right now is probably not a necessary motion if we're staying at the 2,800. We would only need a motion if we are, if we're changing it to 2,500. So we wouldn't need an action if we're staying at 2,850. Okay. So,
So I'd like to make a motion to change the board's annual stipend to $2,500 per year.
okay. All right, I have a motion to change it to 2,500.
Support.
Support? Okay. So we'll call for a discussion now on this. So basically, this is what we had talked about, was the 2,500 at the retreat, but we talked about the, getting back to just the base stipend, which was 2,850. So we kind of talked about both things, so I see the point, but I'll let the motion makers say their point. Go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. As to my understanding is that I thought we were in agreement prior to us coming back and the superintendent looking up and finding the research to understand that we were actually at 2,850. I thought as a group we had discussed that we wanted, generally it was getting back to a monthly stipend paid at least monthly instead of every 6 months. That was a point that was made. And as well, there was an agreement, I thought, around the table that it was at 2,500, which is what our impression was at the time anyhow. So I'm just trying to make a motion for us to get on the same page that we thought we agreed upon at the point of the retreat. And that's where through the lengthy discussion at that time, I'm just trying to get us to that point that I thought we were all on the same page at.
President.
Okay. Mr. Green.
I hear what Mr. Coops are saying. However, this is information that I think wasn't very clear at the time. We, as a board, were at $2,000 and took pay cuts just like everybody else in the district. And for the amount of work that a lot of people do up here, everybody up here, to be reestablished to what was agreed upon on May 9th of 2,850, to me, once the information was brought to light, would have made a difference in that meeting. Therefore, I believe 2,850 is reasonable. I think if you looked at W-2 forms for everybody up here, it's still less. We're technically taking a pay cut than we took last year. We're not trying to take teachers' money or anybody else, but we do a lot of work up here too. And if we're staying with the letter of what we passed in May instead of reinventing the wheel all the time, I think that's 2,850 is a reasonable amount.
Work that all of these individuals, past and present, that have put forth in this board, and to say that we want to retract from the 2,850 to go back to 2,500 just because it was a topic of discussion. We have clarification. I think that the board, it well deserves the 2,850 for the time, the extra work. And there's additional work that has been put upon the board, not just from the district, but from the state and legislative changes and all the different changes that has occurred with public schools, charter schools, and all the new learning environments that we have to discuss and look at and be aware of what's going on in our district. So I support the 2,850.
Thank you.
Mr. President, point of discussion.
Masso, yes.
So, looking at the information and going back, and I don't know why the May 9th, 2017 had the different numbers, and we had to revisit that. As I'm looking at Teresa's predictions and saying that, see, we had changed our board to go from our regular stipend per month to being per meeting, so $35 per meeting, or and then we had a timesheet, and that was turned in. And I can totally see how finance would have a very hard time making a projection or maintaining a budget without knowing how many meetings there might be, how many committees. But what we learned from that, and what we see as the result of the annual savings, is just under $6,000. Dovetailing off of what Mr. Green had just been speaking of, is that we are actually, by voting to go back to a stipend, taking another pay cut. In addition to that, I believe that if on May 9th, 2017, it was approved at $28.50, then that is what is probably represented in the last or the most recent information that Teresa presented to us. And it would be my feeling at this point to stay at that number rather than make another change backwards. So I think already showing that we're doing the work that would be an additional $6,000, and we're giving that back to go back to a stipend. I think the $28.50, and most of our stipend money goes back into the schools. We're all pretty active with volunteering and buying things and going back. So I think that if it was already set up, May 19th, if we have already voted for it and it's already set that way, that staying at the $28.50 would be agreeable.
I have to add,
Dr. Poponio.
that I know that there was a problem with the process of doing the timesheets or getting paid per meeting, but several of the districts downriver and throughout Michigan have a per meeting stipend that they pay their board members, and it's been years that they've gotten that per meeting fee. We've always just gotten a stipend, and we just recently turned to the per meeting fee or stipend. And also, you know, and it's not about the money, and I'm still going to be as active as I am and continue to be, but throughout this process of our board pay, or whatever the board pay is, we've approved additional monies for stipend, and we always make sure that we, during that time where the teachers had to take their pay freezes, we took the cut. But over the years, we've given out stipends and raises and increases throughout the district, and we didn't ask for anything. But we continue to do our share of our responsibilities and more work.
So I just want to point out that the only people who did receive stipends last year were the non-represented employees in the district. That no employee in this district that didn't get steps, they have not received a raise in well over 5 years. So
there was an employee that came through.
Well, that's not pertinent to this motion, so we can't discuss that. So we can discuss what's pertinent to the motion.
I'm just doing a comparison, a data comparison for what I know personally.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else?
Point of order, Mr. President, I think it's probably a good idea to do a roll call here.
Is it necessary for a roll call?
It will be when people vote no.
Right. Just eliminate.
Or yes.
I can just ask who voted no, and I'll know who voted no.
Mr. President,
We don't need a roll call.
I have a question. And because Ms. Pastor did bring it up, any other time in the past when we've talked about increasing anyone's pay, whether it was superintendent or when we actually declined an increase in our own board pay prior to May 9th, I will ask again. There are still groups that did not see an increase, because I thought the board was under the understanding that the non-represented employees did receive, was it $15,000 spread among?
It was a stipend. That's the stipend that.
Yeah.
It
That's
was
the
a-
stipend that,
Yeah, it was a one-time stipend for a percentage that I would have to look up. It was 1 or 2%.
Okay. But they did receive a stipend. There was something, it just was not a legitimate ongoing increase.
wasn't a
Correct.
step, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think a roll call is necessary. We can, anybody who opposes can identify. So, anything else?
Can we read the motion again? We've talked about a couple different numbers, so.
The motion on the table right now is to change the board stipend, the annual stipend to $2,500 from the $2,850.
Okay.
Okay? So if you're supporting the motion, then you're supporting moving it to $2,850. If you're not, then you're supporting leaving it at $2,850. Did I say that right?
No.
If you support it, you're agreeing to the $2,500,
To the decrease.
to the decrease. Okay? So if you oppose it, then you're leaving it where it is. Okay? All right. With that, I'll go ahead and call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, that's 5-2, I believe. We have 2 noes. Okay, so that motion fails.
Mr. President? Could I make another point of order as well? Just to go on the record, and I know they're not speaking about it in this term, but we talked about it briefly recently. The board has a $1,100 per board education allowance. And those have to be approved through the president. 100 class series first, and then above and beyond that, once you've gotten those. But that money does not roll over, and whatever is not used goes back into the general fund. I believe for the past 3 years, 90% of it has went back into the general fund. So it's important to understand that as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, it takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is Policy Committee. Did you want to present that Policy Committee?
No, there's
just nothing for you? All right.
There's nothing for me, sorry.
Okay. This was an item discussed at the retreat, that we don't technically have any standing committees established, and so we're looking to create a standing committee, and one of the committees that we discussed was Policy Committee. So I'll entertain a motion to meet the objective that we discussed during the retreat.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I
Grant?
make a motion to approve establishing the Policy Committee as a standing committee for the Board of Education through December of 2018.
Support?
I have a motion, I have support. Any discussion from the board?
I have one point, Mr. President. I know that this reads establishing the policy committee, but the policy committee has been meeting, Darlene, is it 5 years now?
It's been 10 years.
Because I think I've been a part 5 or 6 years.
I've been on it since I got on the board.
So this is just reestablishing a standing committee. And then however it meets, will that be worked out? Because during our retreat, I know we said quarterly as needed, things like that.
Right. It's being established as a standing committee.
Right.
Because we couldn't find a record that's ever been established as a
Right.
standing committee. So that's the action, is to go through and create it as a standing committee. I do recognize that it existed before. And then
I could not find it in any minutes.
Yeah, I couldn't find on anything that I searched either. And then I believe the intent was to meet quarterly, but we could meet more often, or the committee could meet more often as determined by administration or the board, either. So we hadn't set a schedule for it, but I think that the policy committee should set a schedule at their first meeting, and then go from there.
And then, as a caveat to that, Mr. President and Ms. Pastor, if I can get into my old blew up on me, hates me laptop. I do have the agenda from summer board retreat where we started our very first standing committees, and there were 6 of them.
So my understanding is at a board retreat, you don't make action. It should have come to the next.
It came to the next it should have been on the next meeting. So if I can find that date, then we just have to look to where the next meeting is.
If you can find it, then.
Okay.
Let me know.
That might give a little more clarity.
Mr. President? I know that at the retreat, we discussed the idea of defining standing committees and that it's done on an annual basis, and at the beginning of each calendar year, you would redefine not only the standing committee, but as well as the members of that committee. And I guess that's maybe for the viewing audience to understand that that's what we had discussed as we talk about the relevancy of committees on a regular basis, and that the standing committee, at this point, we're saying is that we would like this policy committee to be one of the standing committees, and as you can see on the agenda, that we'll be talking about the finance committee as well. I don't know if there's a policy that supports that specific tack of frequency of how often we do that. There's not?
Not specifically,
Not specifically. But is that, I thought, part of an intention?
It was to meet, shall meet as necessary. Policy committee, that's our job. We govern the policy of the district, but it's also a big support for the superintendent. So if something changes or if something comes up, the superintendent says, okay, we need to have a meeting to clarify, to have this clarified, to bring to the board. So that's kind of as needed.
Well, I think what Mr. Cooper was trying to say, I don't want to speak for him, but I think what he was trying to point out is that we're going to revisit these annually and create standing committees.
Yes, yeah.
Although the policy doesn't specify that they need to be done annually. That's the policy, I think, is a little bit lacking on that it doesn't specify when.
The policy does say that they are to be reviewed annually during a board retreat, but it does not say how often the committees are to meet, if that better helps. And Darlene should be able to
Committees can meet, in the policy committee that I was on, met annually, so we met once a year, so it could be biannually, annually.
Because in the summer retreat is when we reallocated anyone who wanted to change up. We said, this is the committee, do we want to continue it, and who would like to be on it? And we would vote at that time.
My point was not the frequency of how much how frequent the committee was meeting. It was just the fact that we would be revisiting this on a regular basis as to what are standing committees and what are ongoing committees, or what is the ongoing effort to define standing committees. That's all I was trying to get at.
Okay.
Just for the audiences, that is, you're looking at, okay, we're defining this as a standing committee. Is this the last time you do this? No, it's done on an annual basis, and that these are the ones that we had discussed at the retreat. Just to give some insight to the discussions that we had. That's all I was trying to do.
Thank you.
So is this where I had the discussion from the other committees and my concerns or importance about?
This is just talking about policy committee. We're not talking about any other committees at this point.
Okay, so when can I do that?
That's not an action item on the agenda.
Okay, so as an announcement, or what do I do? Because we had standing committees and.
The time to add an item to the agenda would have been at the beginning when we were revising the agenda.
So what is the agenda? Or do I say motion to, because I'm not going to create the committee, I just have a comment.
During information announcements, I guess, if you want to make a comment, you could.
Sure, okay.
Any other comments about policy committee? Okay, I'll go ahead and ask for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's 7-0, creates the policy committee. Okay, and now we're on item number 4, which is the policy committee members. Again, this was discussed during the retreat to see who wanted to volunteer for the policy committee. The discussion came up with myself, Mr. Green, and Dr. Pomponio, with Ms. Massa being an alternate to the committee. So that, again, I'll entertain a motion to hear what we represented during the meeting.
Make a motion to approve the following members for the policy committee: Jason Craig, Andy Green, Dr. Pomponio, Rebecca Mossop as an alternate.
I have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Any discussion?
Point of discussion. So as I was reviewing all of this, we had our meeting, our retreat. We had actually broken it into there only being 2 committees, and everybody signed up, and we can't have a quorum, which left me as being the alternative for 2 committees, which I'm not really happy about. One of my master's degrees is in policy and in administration. I've been on the policy committee for 6 years. I've been on the board for 8 through several superintendents. Started doing all of the policy, putting it together. So I don't know a different way that this could work, but I don't like being an alternate on a committee that I have so much time and background invested in. So I just wanted to bring that up. I know Darlene has been on the committee for a long time, but I don't know if there is a way to have a rotating group, which would give more exposure to 4 board members rather than, otherwise I am an alternate for 2 committees, meaning I'm removed from committees. Does that make sense?
I do understand what you're saying.
That's
I
part of my
wish
discussion.
this would have been discussed and brought up when we were having the discussion.
I did. I said, well, I guess that doesn't leave me a committee.
No, that's not the way I recall it. But,
Well, I have it recorded if we want to revisit it, so.
But, okay. I don't think we have this set up as a rotating member committee at this point. That wasn't discussed at our retreat. So.
Mr. President?
Mr. Koopser.
I mean, can we entertain the idea that if someone would like to step away from the committee and leave an opportunity for Mrs. Mosley to step in their place and become the alternate? I know that we've got a proposal on the table that we would have to vote on first, but, I mean, is it possible through discussion if somebody said, you know what, I don't have the passion so much that Ms. Mosley does? Would they be willing to? Could we discuss that? I mean, I know we came up with these numbers, or these names during the retreat, but I mean, I don't know the level of passion. I'm not one of them on there, so don't have a.
And so, I'm not asking anybody to step down. I'm just going on the record as saying that, this was something that was mentioned at the retreat, and it just, I just felt that I wanted to speak to it.
If, I'm sorry, who, go back to see.
P and me.
You made the motion, or
She did.
Dr. Pomponio made the motion? Okay. If Dr. Pomponio wants to amend her motion, I would be willing to step back if you wanted to put Ms. Mossop on that, but that would be up to you as the motion maker and the supporter.
That would be acceptable to me.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion. So can I do that now?
Yep, go ahead and amend your motion.
I'd like to make an amended motion to approve the following members for the policy committee: Andy Green, Dr. Pomponio, and Rebecca Mossop, with Jason Craig as an alternate, maybe?
Okay, do I have support?
Support.
Okay. Any discussion to the amended motion?
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Okay, no discussion. We'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And now we are on to number 5, Finance Committee. Okay, again, this represents what we discussed at the retreat. Does anybody want to make a motion to this?
I'd like to make a motion to approve establishing the Finance Committee as a standing committee for the Board of Education through December of 2018.
Okay,
Support.
a motion and support. Okay, any discussion on this item?
I have one point of discussion, only because I know that it was spoken about before. I was on the Finance Committee for several years, and it is very important to sit down and to meet with Teresa and to make the recommendations that come back to the board. But what I did notice is that we would have our committee meetings, and Teresa would spend the time, an hour, hour and a half, and that, and then that same information would then again come back and be presented to the board as a whole. Anyway, at the end, we would just hear what the recommendation was of the Finance Committee. And of course, we know that a committee cannot make a recommendation because they're not a quorum. So my question on this is, could the Finance Committee, in an effort to save Teresa's time, and because the board is already getting all of the information at the same time to be discussed at the same time, just be the board?
It's not all, the committee does make recommendations. They do have the authority to make recommendations to the full board. They can't make decisions
Right.
for the board, but they can make recommendations. And some items are repetitive. I think administration likes that. I think they prefer that repetitive, almost a practice run through, but not in every instance. But I think we did discuss that the Finance Committee does have an important place, and I would be supporting having a Finance Committee myself. But that's just one, I'm just one vote, so.
That's just from my experiences of being on it, just a question. I know that we speak a lot about Teresa's time and what she has going on, so.
Okay. Any other?
Mr. President?
Dr. Poponia?
We did discuss at the board retreat that we would possibly just take the repetitiveness of the review of the budget amendments and the budget and just bring that to the full board, because that was just time consuming to repeat everything, so that was what was discussed as well.
Right, okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of creating the Finance Committee, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's 7-0. Finance Committee is created. Okay, and then item number 6 is for the Finance Committee members. Again, this was discussed at the retreat.
Mr. President,
Mr. Green?
make a motion to approve the following members of the Finance Committee: Timothy Estimer, Jason Koopser, Neil Freitas, and Rebecca Mossop as an alternative.
That's fine, let's wait here.
Support?
Okay, I have a motion and support. Okay, any discussion as to the committee members? Mr. Koopser?
Mr. President, I know that Ms. Mossop was made the alternative for both of those committees because she wasn't on one. Now that you're not on any of them, do we want to entertain you being the alternative for either of them as a board?
I was made the alternate for the policy committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But,
President's on the committees.
but it doesn't matter to me. I don't, if you'd like me to be an alternate, I could be, but the motion was for Ms. Mossop, which I don't have a
Unless Ms.
problem
Mossop has a passion, she wants to be the alternative.
I don't have a,
In the past, the Finance Committee, as I have always known it, has been president, treasurer, and then either the vice president or the secretary. Just because I'm sure the president wants to know everything that's going on, those little tidbits that might happen. Treasurer makes sense. So that was another thing that I thought you might want to think about with regards to that.
I don't have any issues with the motion that's been proposed.
Just because we shouldn't have discussion after the vote, just the fact that I was the default chair because I was the treasurer of the Finance Committee, I would still be responsible at least for the next agenda until it's deemed if there's another chair that would need to be appointed by the committee itself. So I'm still expecting that the next committee meeting would be on February 27th, 2018.
Okay.
I think it's the 27th. It's the Wednesday after our next board meeting. But I'll send that on the agenda.
Yeah, by
and hold
rules
that roll.
of the policy that when the committee gets together, they need to, this goes for the policy committee as well, they will need to nominate a chairperson, and then that chairperson would continue to set the meetings from that point, be responsible for the minutes and so forth.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Any other discussion?
Are we keeping it as is, or are we doing an amendment to an alternate, or no?
It's just as presented.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion's passed. Okay, now we're on item 7, which is the vote for MASB Region 8 Board of Directors candidate.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion here to cast the Southgate Board of Education ballot for, it's my honor to make this recommendation and this motion for candidate Dr. Darlene Pomponio to the MASB Region 8 Board of Directors.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion, and I have support. Any discussion on this?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, do you have something?
No.
Okay.
No, I was gonna,
Okay.
ready to vote.
Pomponio.
This nomination's for an open seat at the Michigan Association of School Boards Board of Directors. I will represent Region 8, which includes Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County School Boards. This is a position where the board member plays a more active role in a MASB decisions, functions, and collaboration with other districts throughout the state of Michigan. I've met with many of the board colleagues from around the state already and have received support and kind words of encouragement for that position. My plan is to work with the MASB and the board members with student achievement in mind and to learn from others as I work in that position to better understand the issues as well as the legislation that are in the forefront of public education. And I appreciate your continued support. The ballot does come before the entire state March 7th, I believe, so they'll select a candidate. But also, Mr. Hubler is he's a candidate from Lance Cruz Schools, and Robert McLaughlin. They're both dedicated individuals, and I wish them all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
We just wish you a lot of luck, Darlene. I know that
Thank you.
you've worked with them so much, and to see, we all get to have a little privy of everyone's background, but to have the President's Award and to have been as involved as you had with MASB Board of Directors just makes sense, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes
Thank you.
7-0. Okay, and that takes us to employee representatives. Do we have any employee representatives here tonight to speak? Nobody's jumping up. All right, so we're on to information and announcements from the board.
Mr. President,
Mr. Green.
very quickly, I'd like to remind the viewing public, especially those at Grogan Elementary School, that Grogan will have their Valentine's dance this Friday. It was rescheduled from last Friday with the snow day. The PTA and the teachers at Grogan and the parents do a wonderful job of putting this on. There's a lot of donations. Mr. Coopser and myself, representing Grogan, have donated money and some supplies to the dance Friday. So if you have a little one that goes to Grogan and you're watching, please come out and support the Grogan Valentine's Dance on Friday. I said this last time, Saturday, the very next day, so I'm going to be at a lot of dances this weekend. The only person who loves me is my daughter. Just kidding. Well, maybe not. I don't know. The city of Southgate has their annual daddy-daughter dance, which is this Saturday. There's 2 different dances. One's from 2 to 4. The other's from 6 to 8. I attended that in the past with my daughter. It's a wonderful event. So 2 wonderful opportunities to spend the nights with your daughter, son, what have you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have some information here, announcements. Actually, some of them are hot off the press. I received an email from Mrs. Gundick, the president, or the principal over at Shelters. She wanted to pass along a message to encourage the students to continue earning their reading points toward the reading counts goal and practice math using the Zern computer program. Monday the 26th at 8:45 will work out great. I reserve, oh, that's a different part of the email, sorry. That's my personal meeting with her. And the one that just came in is the Shelters Annual Family Math Party is scheduled for Wednesday, February 28th. RSVPs are necessary for proper planning. It is a first come, first serve in limited seating and available per grade level. That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I have a few.
I had Dr. Pomponio next, sorry.
Okay, a couple things. First thing, at Davidson, there's been some tours from the fifth graders, so they're going to be transitioning to Davidson. So it's happened with Allen, Ford Line, Shelters is coming up, and Grogan, I believe, was today. And then for the eighth graders, which I'm going to get choked up about because I have an eighth grader, and I know you do.
I do.
There's a freshman orientation the 15th at 7 o'clock at Anderson. So good luck to all those transitioning at the end of the year. Everybody's preparing now, so good luck to them. And also there is a Europe trip planned in the planning stages for next year for the Spanish and French students, I believe in the high school and middle school. So that's a trip that's being in the works. That's being worked out right now for a trip to Europe, so that's great. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Masso.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, I have a few things. First, ROTC, they have their annual military banquet on the 23rd of March. So if you have a cadet who is involved in ROTC and, like mine, doesn't bring paperwork home, this can count as your reminder to have your form to fill out to get tickets. In addition, JROTC has a competition this Saturday. The cadets get there around 6 a.m., but it actually starts closer to about 8. If you have not seen our JROTC drill team or any of these events in action, you should really come and check it out, even just for a short time. It is super impressive, and we have a new sergeant who is working with the kids this time, so it's going to be some hot competition this Saturday amongst us and a couple of the other schools. Southgate Anderson baseball clinics, March 3rd and March 10th. The location is at the Southgate Anderson Gymnasium and the multipurpose room. They're from 9 to noon. Registration opens at 8:30. It's ages 6 to 14. It's $25 a day, and space is limited, so you might want to reach out and contact someone for that. Everybody who participated yesterday in the No Cook Monday Hungry Howie's Pizza fundraiser, we want to thank you. This was for the Southgate Percussion Program, and a great big thanks went out from the Winter Percussion Program's leaders. Tryouts are tomorrow at Anderson for the talent show. If you happen to be watching and are expecting your young person to try out in the auditorium, it has been changed. They will be holding the auditions in Mr. Reynolds' room. So that is the only change for that, and it will be the only day of tryouts. And I feel like I had one other thing. And I don't.
Okay.
But thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Mr. President, sorry to add, sorry to.
Go ahead.
Happy Valentine's Day tomorrow also. And I'd be remiss if one of us on the board or the superintendent, make sure if you're watching at home, tomorrow is count day. That's a pretty important day for us. So if anybody needs a ride to school, Miss Pastor will come and pick you up. Just kidding, but we really need you at school. That would be great for everybody in this school district. It's pretty important.
Isn't it great that it's flu season right now?
Flu season, Valentine's Day.
Mr. Freitas.
I would like to give a special thank you to Mr. Childs, Mr. Blas, and all the rest of the Davidson staff that put on the Winter Fitness Challenge at Mount Brighton. It was a wonderful opportunity for students and parents, very cost-effective for people to have the opportunity to learn how to ski. It's a cumbersome job and it's a thankless job, but it goes often unappreciated. But myself, many other parents and the students really appreciate the work, and thank you for putting that on this year.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I remembered my last hit.
Oh, please.
So the other one was a reminder that the board did vote back in January that the school of choice period or for kindergarten would be from March 1st to March 15th, and that there would be 50 openings for kindergarten programs. We've had a lot of parents asking when is the first open enrollment, and I know that they're used to having one that's a little bit closer to the start of the school year, but March 1st to March 15th, and you can contact the board office for getting paperwork on that. And I just wanted to also make sure that we say we hope that everybody is doing something in their own homes or in the community to celebrate Black History Month, which is something that there have been several posts on different activities that will be coming up, and each year annually there is a contest that goes on the parent page for 100 words essay, and they get a book voucher for Barnes & Noble. So that was just posted as well. And now I'm done.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Last time through? All right. Okay, takes us on to P, which is work items. Number 1, review 2 new course proposals.
So in your packets, you have 2 new course proposals. One is an enrichment course for 7th and 8th grade students at Davidson Middle School called Medical Detectives, which is another Project Lead the Way course. And you also have one for a semester-long English class at Anderson High School, which is another option for 11th graders called Music as Literature. And I think both Mr. Kadlitz and Ms. McKenna, who are presenting these, are here. So if you have questions based on your review of that information, you might be able to speak about that.
Would you like to hear a few things from them?
Yes. Absolutely, please.
I mean, they did make the effort.
Yeah,
we might as well.
We don't want them to waste the trip.
We don't want them to waste, yes.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
If you don't know me, Mr. Kadlitz or Dave Kadlitz, I teach over at Davidson. I've been teaching Project Lead the Way, which is a nationally recognized organization that is providing curriculum mostly for engineering. This is actually for the biomedical sciences area. They do have a high school program for both, and this is kind of their gateway program to introducing students to the biomedical sciences. So if you have students that are interested in, they want to be marine biologists or veterinarians, doctors, nurses, and that sort of thing, this is kind of the first experience they can have with hands-on activities involving those. So if you look on the sheets that you have, the curriculum is broken into 3 parts. The first part just basically gives them a little bit of experience of what it's like to be a medical professional. They do some simple diagnostics involving things like heart rate, temperature, things like that. They do these as an activity, so they'll get to experience what happens like when you exercise, how that changes your physiology and things like that. The second part is more of a human biology exploration. They have things like in the curriculum. They have dissecting a sheep's brain, which actually I don't plan on doing for one reason, because of the cost effectiveness of it. I think there's other models that are available that are also reusable and a little more applicable. So I'm investigating those areas to fish that out. And then in the third section is the medical investigator section. This is the CSI course that all the kids were really excited about. And it simulates a crime scene, nothing gory. There's no entrails all over the wall or anything like that. But it gives them a chance to use their deductive reasoning based off of what they've learned to try to figure out what the solution to the mystery is. So, as far as teaching with this, before I was a teacher, I worked in the field as a clinical laboratory scientist. And I'm really kind of excited about being able to put this out there because I think there's a lot of kids that would really gravitate towards it. We did have a class a few years back when Davidson was an 8-9 building run by Wendy Smith that was very popular, and this is hopefully going to put that back in place for the kids. So if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask them.
Any questions? Well,
Mr. President,
first.
I know I've seen this before, but is there a forensic portion of this?
That would be the third section.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as the forensics, it's actually, there's a little bit of forensics in each part, but the applied forensics would be at the last part.
Okay, because I know I reviewed it with Mrs. Dr. Booker Herring. I thought I saw that, but that's a great curriculum. I reviewed it, and also the murder mystery. Is that the engaged student learning?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
forensic. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Or?
Yes, I had two quick ones. What was the course called before?
I believe it was called Medical Investigations. It was actually run with Mrs. Sokolowski, and they had it. Part of it was like reading murder mysteries, and then
It was a bifurcated class,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so.
This isn't the same class, though.
Okay, and that's what I want to make clear because years ago, it seems like this was about 6 years ago.
Yeah,
Because my son was in that class, and then it was removed as being a science credit and went to his elective. Do you see that happening at all with this?
This is an elective.
Okay, so
it's
this
not-
is
yeah.
already
Yeah.
formatted as an elective?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is supplemental to what they're already doing in the science program. There are some tie-ins, like they do cell biology in 8th grade, things like that. So.
Okay. And then is there, and Dr. Baker Herring probably answer me, isn't there a class already happening at the high school that is similar to this?
We do have forensics.
Okay,
at the high
because
school.
my son is in that course right now. This would be a wonderful precursor to
Right,
a
that's-
child
well,
who's
yeah.
moving forward, because they're diagnosing they took apart sheep eyes, and he's actually going into vet school. So this lines up really well with to have a next step to
Right.
it.
In the Project Lead the Way curriculum, they have a high school proportion that's similar to what we have at the high school. That's the step up from this class. So it'd be similar. I've also contacted the forensics teacher at the high school about possibly doing some collaboration. And in addition, we also have an agreement with Wayne State's Clinical Laboratory Science Program as a support for possibly supplies and things like that. Nothing monetary, but if they have used equipment and things like that, we've got that organized.
Now, at this level, do you ever have the opportunity to have speakers come in from the fields that this would prepare them for? Because this could be anything from vet tech, EMS, paramedic. I do forensic profiling, and this sounds like something I would have been totally into.
Right. We can have that depending on the timing and availability of the different people.
Okay.
It is supposed to be a catch-all for all those different things. So, and the program itself does offer a little bit of flexibility where I can actually add more things in to kind of fill that out. So.
I think this is awesome. If you're ever looking for any guest speakers from some really cool projects, let me know.
Okay.
But I love it, and I love that there's already a crossover to the high school. I would hope that anyone who had a child who maybe 6 years ago was in the program like it, this is similar but totally different.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Well, as much as I know about the old program.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to add that Davidson is much needed new electives, and I think this
Yes.
is a great additional class to add to the program.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
I have a question actually for Ms. Pastor, Ms. Baker Herring, nothing personal. This relates to, I know this is on a work item, just for our own protocols in terms of understanding. Should I be seeing this for an action in the future, or is this a?
The plan would be to put it on the action agenda for our next meeting in 2 weeks.
So it would need to be approved by the board itself?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so would that be a 2-week wait to find out for this decision?
Yes, so tonight it's just as an action item just to discuss.
Okay.
And then it goes, I'm sorry,
Work item.
it's a work item, and then in 2 weeks it goes to action.
Okay. I am hoping to implement this for next year, so the sooner the better would be great.
It's going to be a long 2 weeks for you,
Yeah.
isn't it? No, I'm sure. This is great. And thank you for coming in tonight to speak about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on?
When do the students start picking their electives? for
At
Dave
We
Davidson?
haven't started that yet. Mrs. Bias is in charge of that.
Very soon.
It is coming up, that's why I'm trying
Yeah.
to get this in place yet before that.
High school, we're not.
I know high schools do Friday.
Yeah, I
And-
think high school, we might not make it.
If you,
It's at the end of the school year, I know that.
and if we have a large number of students with interest in that, is there a possibility of extending that and having another section, or?
Usually,
with-
from what I understand, they will organize the different electives based off of availability. They do a poll, and the kids pick their
Yeah.
classes, and they will adjust the schedules, the availability of the classes by preference, how many kids want which particular class.
But does it
Like
have
the
the ability
engineering
to be
class, they get
expanded
that.
into another?
Well, I mean, as far as being like a second class after the first, or just multiple?
Like multiple
Multiple.
classes, like 2 sections in the
Yeah.
first semester and
The
one
only
in.
caveat is we'd have to have more supplies for it.
Mhm.
But for that class in particular, it's very easily duplicated.
Okay.
Thank you.
No other questions on that? Okay. 11th grade English.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Christine McKenna. I teach French at the high school. In the past, I have taught both French and English some years when they want me to do both. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I was listening to the radio, and this idea just like popped into my head. I was listening to Alanis Morissette sing about things that aren't ironic, and I was like, well, why don't we teach kids what something is by showing them something that it's not? Like, that's not crazy, is it? And then I started thinking about all the things that we could do with this. And I started thinking about different units that we could talk about. We can talk about music as social change, and examine artists like Bob Marley and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I really love Billy Joel, and he's a fabulous storyteller. And so I thought, why not teach kids about storytelling through Billy Joel and the different scenarios that he paints. And I have to tell you, I told Dr. Baker Herring this too, but the kids are already listening to music. So I constantly have to, and actually I've developed a little sign for it. It's called this. And they know that means take out your earbuds, I'm trying to talk. So I thought, why not exploit that and use it as a way to teach literature? I know that in the curriculum that I've taught, there is a severe lack of poetry. We just don't spend a lot of time on poetry. And that is essentially what music is poetry to music. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I just wanted to share it with the kids and maybe open their horizons to new and daring artists that they might not have heard of before. And like I said, it's just something that I was popped into my head, and I got really super excited about it, and I ran to Dr. Baker Herring, was like, can we make this happen? And as you see in my proposal, it's not going to cost us anything because all of the resources are readily available online. I understand that the students are in the process of selecting their classes right now, so it's probably not something that would happen for next year. Also, as you can see from my proposal, I still want to work on some of the units and getting a curriculum more fine-tuned. I have some of the things that I want to do, but obviously it's open to interpretation. I just feel like this is a really good course to let kids show us their interests, and when they're interested, I find that they're more engaged and they're learning. I have the support of the English department at Anderson High School. They're really excited about it, and I don't know, I'm really super excited about it, and I hope you guys like it as much as I do. And you can see from, I'm not sure if it's included in your packet, but I did provide some of the research behind using music in the classroom, and not just in, like in English as a second language, which I also teach in the evenings now, but using it in that way too. So for our non-native speakers, this is a really easily accessible way to gather, get at literature and pick it apart. Students aren't reading like huge novels. They do that in every other English class, so they get a ton of that already. And you also see that nearly all of the English standards can be met through this course, except for, obviously, wouldn't be reading 18th century literature. But so, anyways, that's my spiel.
Okay.
So you're talking about,
Dr. Pomponio.
So you're talking about the music genres through the years and what the impact was in society and things like that, like the 60s and 70s movements.
Yes, that's one of the, I was actually kind of trying to think of ways that I could design it. And so I was kind of going between, should I design it by literary themes? Should we talk about things like irony? Should we talk about storytelling? Should we talk about personification and do like little mini units with different songs and having them show me examples in the music that they're listening to? And then I started thinking, or should I do it through the ages, like start in the 1920s or something like that, you know, long ago. They read The Great Gatsby, so they're familiar with the era, but do they know the music? And do it through time. My English department heads also recommended doing some, like, from other countries and things like that, exploring different types of music in a world way. I mean, as a French teacher, that's something that's important to me too, is opening that horizon, because that's actually not something that any of our English courses focus on. They don't focus on literature too much of other countries. So.
And with the engaged student learning, you have the multimedia presentations and
yes.
software like that. Do they get involved with any of the music software that's out there too, with regard to music?
Well, and
or
that's
just presentations.
I have in the past, like in my French curriculum, I have the students read The Little Prince, and I have had students I give them a choice project at the end of that unit, and I have had kids compose music for the novel, so it's definitely something that they're already doing, and I think that this could be a really good vehicle for them to show, like, these kids are good at it. They're good at making music. They're good at, like, we think that everything they're listening to is garbage probably, but some of it is actually really good, and, you know, they're able to recognize it. And those strengths that we don't focus a lot on creativity. And so, yes, I would love to have some sort of choice assignments where that could be something that they could do. They could demonstrate that they know what imagery is by writing their own music and lyrics and things like that.
And my final point, one of the things that I was thinking of too is the way the music was for the 70s and how they were protesting and the different messages and the way they did use some vulgar language. And the current music, parents don't understand it. They don't know where the creativity is sometimes. But when you go back and you look at the previous genres and you look at what their message was and, you know, some of the language there,
right,
that it's similar but just different generations.
Right.
Whereas I wouldn't know anything about the 70s music. You could do a whole semester on We Didn't Start the Fire alone, American history.
Like I said, these kids are gonna love Billy Joel hopefully as much as I do, because like that's my bread and butter. But yeah, that's.
I had to throw that dig in.
You did.
Mr. President?
Ms. Bossy.
I did have a couple things. It's funny because when I read this, 2 days before I had gotten information on anything to do with this, Eminem came on, and my son, who is in uni, wanted to listen to Simon and Garfunkel. And I said, well, you realize that Eminem will one day be Simon and Garfunkel
yes.
to somebody. And we started talking about, so we started finding the oldie channels, and we looked up what their stuff was, and both of us were like, the 90s music is now classic rock.
I know.
But so I understand. I love this. I know that my son, who is actually going to medical school, he took an elective, the world music as language at Wayne State. And it wasn't anything I thought it was going to be, but it was his most enriching course that semester. I do, however, I'm curious, and Dr. Baker-Herring can maybe help me out here. How does this differ from the AP? I can't think of it. There's a AP Music History course.
The only AP English classes we offer is one is AP Comp and Literature, and then Language and Comp. So we don't offer.
Colin took one. He had to read Jay-Z's book. And then they had, it was the study of the history of different genres of music, and he tested and got, it was one of his AP classes.
Maybe that was just, I mean, are you familiar? Maybe that's a unit within the AP English curriculum. And I was actually in an English class today observing, and they were playing Eminem, Lose Yourself, and analyzing the different components of, I forgot, elements of some kind of writing. So there was a list of them. So they were doing a similar thing, but I think there may be just a unit that's in the ELA AP curriculum, but I'm not sure that there's an actual.
It was the whole class. I'd have to ask him. I can email it. It was an entire class. And then as I was looking through here, do you have anything that you know that would already be curriculum based? Do you have any, or is this you're gonna create as the class moves forward on what to do? Because I see like 4 pages talking about 5 pages rapping English, and
yeah, that was just research showing like that music does increase student engagement. That was a 30-page research paper that I kind of and then the woman in New York that did the hip hop class. I've like reached out to her, and other people have reached out to her to see like how we can get this started, and that could definitely be, I mean, I don't want it to be exclusive, but that could definitely be part of what we do. And so that's why I said, like, at this point, this is kind of just like all, that's what I'm getting down right now. And to go back to Dr. Pomponio's question, like, I want to try to figure out how exactly I want to organize it. Do I want to organize it by a thematic unit, or do I want to organize it through time? And if I do that, then that's where I'm kind of still developing the curriculum.
Interesting enough, how literature has evolved and then devolved and then has started to evolve again, as has music. And if you don't mind, I'll email you. There's a few things on Netflix where they talk about there's always been these same groups since we've been alive, of knowing these same groups of people that like this kind of music, this kind of, what at one point the hardest music that we had was doo-wop. So this gentleman is speaking, and he's like, so here's your heavy metal lover and doo-wops, and he's like, you know, and he's trying to like do the what you want to express, but to do And so why did it grow from there? And then that goes into geopolitical things that change things. So I can forward that to you if you'd like to. That might give you a springboard or something to kick off.
And one thing that another English teacher shared with me was the rewriting of current songs as Shakespearean sonnets. And they're called.
They did that in English.
Yeah, but but they mentioned that, and some of them are really funny, like the Beyonce Single Ladies one, hearing her speak like a Shakespearean duke. But yeah, so stuff like that you know, we can see how it. And I really just want a creative outlet for them, without, you know, like I said, they read so many novels, they do so much really heavy lifting. Let's let them show us what they're interested in, and that's really what I see this. Like, I'm gonna give you this as my, you know, spark, and then you take it and run with it. I'm like, that's why I'm really excited. I hope to learn a lot from them, and if it's something that we keep in the future, be able to change and adjust with what they present to me.
And you're looking for this in 2019, 2020?
Yes, so probably not this school year, because they're already scheduling, but the following year.
You're very excited about it, so that makes me excited about it. That's nice to see.
Like I said, I was driving home like dark night after work, and I was so tired, and I'm listening to Alanis, and I'm like, had this wonderful brainstorm, and it just stinks that I had it so late in the year that I can't do it for next year. But yeah, I'm really pumped about it. So I hope that you guys think it is as awesome as I do.
Well, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have one thing to add. When you were talking about the medical detective, you were asking Mr. Kadlitz if it could expand. He is trained with Project Lead the Way, so I mean, that is one component that has to happen for whoever teaches that course. Obviously, it'd have to be within his, you know, school day. But also, he did indicate that the materials that he would need would be about $1,600. He also wrote in there that he's still got about $1,300 to $1,400 in his Project Lead the Way account at Davidson. So I did say that the remaining $200 to $300 we would just have to budget for that for each. Now he's saying, you know, if it were to be more than one section, we would need to make sure we would have enough funds to cover that. So I mean,
just explain that further. About 70% of that is startup. The rest of the consumables usually average about $300 to $400 a
I'd be willing to commit to that, if you couldn't come up with that, so.
I usually look at the grants all over the place. So, BASF has actually been pretty generous the last couple of years, and if they continue with their generosity, it shouldn't be an issue whatsoever.
That's great.
That's
That's great.
Mr. President.
Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner before Ms. McKenna left the microphone. As related to, I guess I'm a little lost on the structure of the curriculum itself. I mean, we talk about having multiple genres and different groups and talking about social relevance as it relates to music during different time periods and how that expands the story and the conversation of what people were talking about and what they were trying to express themselves so artistically through their music. And therefore, writing about that becomes a very a potent way to try and have that discussion and relevance of how it's affecting now as well as at the time. So I think that the idea is it's excellent. I just don't understand the structure, and it seems like it's more free flowing, or it hasn't been.
That was my question.
Thought all the way through in terms of, and also what genres as well. And I know that we all have a Billy Joel family for itself, but I don't know what I don't know, and that shouldn't limit what we try and teach in terms of those things. So pushing that, exploring to help maximize the opportunity, but also structure the curriculum a little bit better in my mind. I don't understand it quite yet. So I guess that's where I'm.
We would have to we would see the syllabus before we would vote.
So is that for 2 weeks from now? Do we get to see that before
So you would
then,
not see the syllabus. I think that if I were Chris McKenna and thinking about this is your support of this new course. It then gives her a year and a half to develop the curriculum. She, I know, would be very willing to come back and provide you with a syllabus prior to that school year to sort of show you her planned structure. I would be hesitant to put in the amount of work it will take to develop this course without your support to begin with. So this is that launch, and then, of course, she does have the time to plan for it, and it sounds like the students are going to drive that, so it might be a skeleton. So.
Okay. That helps, because I thought we were voting on it in 2 weeks, and I'm like going, what?
You're voting on the new course,
Uh-huh.
and then the curriculum would be fine-tuned.
And it's dependent on the curriculum being
Well,
completed?
the curriculum is going to
Okay.
address these content standards.
Okay.
And as a former curriculum director, I would be very pleased, and she, basically, when she writes the curriculum, will make sure that it hits these standards, and Dr. Baker-Heron will be checking on that, so.
As we would expect. I just didn't understand the protocol in terms of we're approving before we see the full fleshed-out
But
course plan.
Yes, and
So-
keep in mind, it's an elective.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
Actually,
Thank you.
It's English.
it's English.
Oh.
They have they can choose multiple English courses for both semesters. It's required, but they don't have to choose that one. They have to choose from a group of.
So is it an English elective or?
English elective, but it's not an elective.
Similar to
English
the,
option.
our group that they write the plays, they put everything together, but they don't do the plays, and that's an English class. So that's one of, that's another type of elective, which would.
Yeah.
Like Lit of
Be a
Myth,
parallel.
Speech and Debate are different 11th grade elective courses for English like this one.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to draft of superintendent goals.
So I can't,
Very much.
with the enthusiasm of the last two, this is not an enthusiastic, okay.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
not an enthusiastic presentation, so really getting my mind around the new MASB board superintendent rubric and goals. I'm going to be very honest with you that the student growth is identical, stolen completely from Leslie. The others, in reading the different sections of that rubric, were the areas that I really felt were the first things I was going to focus on. So the student growth does talk about that 90% or more of the students have met their growth growth target. That's based on the teachers choosing their pre and post data and looking at student growth over time. So the next section is that governance and board relations, and the section I chose were materials and background. So just really ensuring that the materials are comprehensive with all adequate background information and previous action included, and that recommendations are included. And so after that first meeting, learning about the Google Doc, how that needed to be reshared and all those things, this is obviously going to be an ongoing challenge, as when we went to the board retreat, we thought one amount, and then I discovered some other information. So I think that this is really important for me to focus on. The next is that community relations and approachability, and that I'll be visible and approachable by members of the community and attend a variety of events. So I can already tell you that I've been the first time at a wrestling meet, and I've now been to 2 cheerleading competitions. So I am trying to get out there. I didn't get to the AP meeting last night, but we'll be at the freshman orientation on Thursday night. So just, some people do know me from Corman and other places, and some have zero idea who I am, and I'm flying under the radar. So just that whole approachability. Next is staff relations and that staff feedback. And it's really all about seeking staff input on decisions, creates methods for the staff to be actively involved in setting and supporting district-wide goals. So part of my challenge is that I'm here mid-year, but I think that I need to collect some data and for some information. So I'll give you one example. For years, we've heard that half-days are hard for parents, but we've never asked them. So during our March perception surveys, I'm going to purposely ask some questions to gather some information from some parents. So I'm also going to add some staff questions. So for example, back in the day, we used to have late start Mondays, and we have heard that the staff hate it. I'd be interested to see if they thought those were useful, or just the need to meet more often than we currently meet in professional learning. So the next is business and finance, and that whole budget development and management, and just to assure that the budget actions are proactive and consider the most current information and data. So I know that Mr. Koopser would really love to have a 5-year sort of projection, and just the whole notion that it's February and we really don't know what our per student foundation allowance will be until Teresa already has a proposed budget. So that's the sort of the nation, the way that it is right now, but we do have the ability to make some projections and try to be as proactive as we can. The next one is instructional leadership and school improvement, and ensure that the school improvement plans are in place at all buildings and aligned to the district-wide goals. So this is really something that I did as curriculum director. I understand it. It makes total sense to me. Dr. Baker Herring has already scheduled a meeting with the building school improvement chairs, and that conversation is already going to be going on. But it's essential that our school plans line up with our district plans, and that we don't have multiple plans. And so for the first time, we're really, since that 5-year plan was created last summer, we're going to look at what part of that 5-year plan can be infused into our school improvement plan, and therefore the district improvement plan. So just really trying not to have all of these separate plans, and to be more concise and working on the same things. So if you don't have any questions or comments, these would then go on the action item for next meeting. I am pretty uncomfortable saying between February and June I'm going to be awesome at all of these things, and so you'll notice that I did put down June of 2019. Just to remind you, just like the teachers and the administrators, you essentially have to give me a rating on all parts of the rubric, but these will be my focus areas. Or as the teachers call it, their areas of focus.
Mr. President?
Awesome.
Have we made a decision? We do have the ability or opportunity to do a partial year evaluation. I had learned about this through Throon as well as MASB, and it would be where we would come up with your objectives, and you would do your self-evaluation for what you've done so far. And then when it would come to us, we would be evaluating you only on the day that you sat in that seat to the day that we were filling out the form. It is a really good practice run because it's done in the whole, you see all of the notations and things like that, but it is seen as a partial year. And then the benefit of that is, so let's say that we did that and this is something that we just loved, community relations and approachability. At that point in the summer, we could say, okay, well, we'd like to see social media added to that. Or with something else, we would like
You know about my Facebook issues,
I know,
right?
I'm buying you time, Jill. But like, in another way, I know
Plenty
that
of
there's
room for
something coming up that is expected for school boards to have under their superintendent goal, the plan for teacher and administration evaluations. And that wouldn't be in here, that's not in here now, but that's something that we would move forward. So I think we need to figure out if we're going to do that partial year evaluation. I think.
So I do have to tell you that I did check with Mr. Moran, and even if we do a partial year evaluation, you have to give me a rating because it's due as part of the rep
Yes.
report.
We're in a sense doing a partial year,
Yes.
because that's all we have. But
All you
it's
have.
not, I don't think it's termed any different though, right? It's just termed a
No,
superintendent.
but what's
evaluation.
wonderful about it is you get all of the comment soup to create anything or change or evolve anything that you want with your evaluation. Because we can't give you a bad rating on a few months' performance when all we see is that you're implementing and starting new and implementing and starting new. We base it off of that. So it's a good way for the board to hone your specific goals as opposed to anybody else before you.
And I have to say that that's exactly what we do with administrators and teachers. So for example, when I met with the administrators, there were a few goals that I had some questions about, and they changed their goals mid-year based on a comment or a question or a tweaking of a word. So these are my goals as of February, but I can definitely see after that evaluation making some adjustments. And I do have a meeting with a social media person on Thursday to help me get on, as my daughter is calling it, the Facebook. So it's coming.
You will do fine. You will do fine.
Never been on.
Mr. President.
Said I never would.
Mr. Cruiser.
Thank you. I have 6 goals on here. Do we have any recollection of how many goals commonly are under a superintendent's goals? Is it usually 6? Is it more? Is it less? Do we have any idea?
So I looked at Leslie's goals, and I want to say she had 8 or 9. But I could look and tell you next time, but I don't have them in front of me.
I was just curious. It's an appropriate size as it learns. In terms of areas of focus, I know that you're responsible for the entire
So it's more areas of focus
scorecard,
than we would give a teacher, but I think that these are pretty manageable, so that's why I chose these.
Starting point, basically.
That's fine.
Till we get an evaluation, and we can really tell you what we think.
You could really tell me what you think, yes. I'd be glad to.
Okay.
Listen.
That's all. Thanks.
Any other questions? No? All right. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.